Everybody, to our second webinar here at Vendoroo. Looking forward to speaking with you all again. Our plan here today, our goal is for me to share some insights that are not directly related to Vendoroo as a company and as a product and a service, but things that can be helpful for just any companies or individuals in the property management space. And then I'm going to go into some other items of how we use Agentic AI internally that just help us optimize our own internal process. And part of that's our onboarding process with all of our wonderful new clients. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. That can be about anything you all want. So as I mentioned, we'll do an AI overview plus a demo. I like to do live demos as much as possible. Agentic AI is a little harder since it takes time for it to process. So I have some kind of use cases and some recordings that I did with live data last night to show you. Also like when to agent. So when to use Agentic AI, when to use generative AI, when the human element can shine above all as well. And then like I mentioned, we'll do a couple Vendoroo uses that I use it on my day-to-day also. A little bit of background about me. For those of you that are first time joining or first time seeing my face, I am the head of operations here at Vendoroo. I used to own and operate a property management company, ended up selling it, and I'm super interested in the AI space. So did a little bit of consulting there, and then ended up finding an awesome role with Vendoroo. I started seeing their marketing when I was selling my company, and was like, this is something I would definitely use if I was going to continue on. So when the opportunity presented itself, I jumped in. But aerospace engineering background, been in operations with and consulting with Deloitte and Amazon and places like that. So excited to be in the startup world and the AI world with Vendoroo. Okay, so going into our AI overview. So kind of a brief overview of AI. For those that were in the last session, we went over this too. I really want to use this just as a grounding component so we're all on the same page and just kind of reinforcing it as we go. So what is AI? There's kind of three general topic types that we talk about right now. There's generative AI, there's agentic AI, and there's general AI or AGI. Generative AI is something like, hey, build me a report. It's creating content for you, making an image, making a story, making a book. You're giving it a prompt and it's giving you something back and a product back to you, but it's not really doing anything outside of that. Agentic AI is taking that to the next step where you're giving it a goal or like a task to complete. So, hey, I want you to do research on this topic and then update this spreadsheet with the information that you found. So it's kind of a do this and then do that type of action. And then general AI or AGI, by all accounts, we're not there yet. But that would basically be like releasing a robot into the world and it would just exist as we exist now as people. So nothing in Vendoroo is on the general AI side, where we fit right into the generative and the agentic side. And so what does AI need to be successful? It needs a solid foundation of knowledge, which is considered a large language model or an LLM when you're hearing about AI and what the brains of the AI are. So like OpenAI is one, Anthropic's another, then you have XAI as well, or kind of like the brains. And then you have Grok, which is kind of the way you interact with XAI. You have Claude, which is Anthropic, and then you have ChatGPT, which is how you interact with the OpenAI brains as well, and the different models that they have. It needs proper framing and context. So it needs to understand what you want it to accomplish. So something like how you would interact with me, if you're like, hey, Tyler, like I want you to make me a sandwich. If you tell it to make me a sandwich, I might think you want turkey, ham, BLT, anything under the sun. Same thing with AI. It's going to say, hey, you gave me broad context, so I might come up with a broad answer. But if you say, hey, Tyler, like I want a turkey sandwich on rye with lettuce, tomato, and onions, that's what I'm going to make you. So if you give the like similar context to the AI of, hey, build me this story about a boy and a hippo is what I used last time. They are in this part of the world and doing X, Y, and Z. It will then respond with that context in mind. And that's tied to clear and descriptive directions. So just like how you as a person want to have clear instructions so that you're able to accomplish a task, AI does better the more clear and descriptive it is as well. And then it needs to be taught. So there's large language models that are just tons of data that it combs through. They're being updated and added to a lot, but there's also custom and targeted information too. So sometimes you can add your own instructions. You can add your own data to skew the AI a little more. And that's what you see when you interact with Vendoroo is we have our base knowledge of hundreds of thousands of work orders, but each individual client can go in and tailor policies. They can tailor instructions, how to troubleshoot, how to do different things. And so you can teach it to do things a little different on on an individual basis. And then so what is it not? It's not a mind reader, so similar to offering framing, context, and direction, it's not going to be able to say, "Oh, this is what they mean." It's going to just do what it's told, essentially. It's not sentient, so it doesn't have common sense, and also common sense is different from everybody's perspective. So unless it has that clear and descriptive direction, it may make a different decision or come to a different conclusion than you might would. So being as crystal clear as possible. And then it's not infallible. So even if you give it crystal clear instructions, there's still a small chance that it might come up with the wrong solution or give you the wrong information back. So you always want to like reframe it, try again, or just like have a sanity check as well. And then it's not all knowing. Like it has a tremendous amount of knowledge, but if that knowledge isn't in its brain, just like with you and me, it ultimately isn't going to know how to provide that answer. All right. So what is Vendoroo? Vendoroo is generative plus agentic. So just as a refresher, our AI chat or PMRoo, as we call it, is generative AI. So getting work order summaries, insights, having it generate owner emails for you or any other type of content. That's the generative AI side. And then we have our agentic AI side, which is our resident troubleshooting. So it has a goal of gathering all pertinent information, attempt to provide guidance to the tenant on how to resolve it, and then provide suggested next steps. So it's not just taking a work order and passing it on to the next person, it's actively trying to resolve it. And then similarly, at the next step with vendor coordination, it has the goal of resolving the work order by working with vendors and tenants within a customized workflow and abiding by policies. So based on that framework, it's going to reach out to vendors and tenants, get scheduling information, provide details about the work order, and really try to help things keep moving forward to completing that work order and having a good experience for both the vendor, property managers, and tenants and resolving the issue completely. All right, so when to agent? So there's going to be a couple questions here with different scenarios you can just put in the chat of what you think. But if there's a one-time analysis, do you think it's better to do an agentic approach or a generative approach? So for one-time analysis, the better thing is to do generative. Creating a prompt and getting a result back or putting data in and asking it to do a specific action to give you like a report or things like that are better to be generative because it's a one-time action and to set something up to be agentic to where it really follows all the direction and is doing actions on behalf of you is better for a recurring task. So I have a couple examples here. Like if you just want to know how many work orders has a vendor received and their outcomes, the best way would just be download all that information, upload it into ChatGPT or something, and then ask it to give you that information. Because it's not something that's gonna be done on like a day-to-day basis. It might be a monthly, quarterly type of feel. Within Vendoroo, we have our dashboard insights, so you get this on kind of a recurring basis. But if when we're actually onboarding clients now, we look at their historical work orders and based on all that information can come up with their most used vendors, vendor insights, notes and how vendors like to be worked with, types of policies that you've actually implemented within your company as well. And I'll show a brief snippet of that later too. Another example would be like a branding and marketing update. So say you're going through a rebrand at your company, you could actually go through and interact with it to have and get some really good insights. So I did go ahead and kind of do one. For those of you that might be familiar with like McKinsey and Company, they're very famous for historically doing a lot of market research papers and things like that. And generally they charged about $200,000 per client to do that. But the cool thing about AI is you can actually get something very similar by just prompting it well. So I did an example with Go High Level and basically told it to give me all the information for Go High Level, and then asked it to take the persona of McKinsey and Bain and McKinsey and Company and take their stance and their perspective to create a strategic plan for them in how to grow their business and change any marketing strategies that they have. And so this actually took about 15-20 minutes, but you see it has everything that you may need to know about how big the company is, scale and investment, some company history, and if we scroll down here, like challenges and growth barriers, strategic pillars and recommendations. So you can get a lot of insights. Like you could do this for your own company. You just say, tell me everything you know about X, Y, and Z property management. It'll give you all that. And then you copy and paste it into another prompt and say, provide me with a McKinsey and Company style report. and just turn on the deep research piece within ChatGPT, and you can get a lot of good insights just for yourself. So, but you're not going to go back and forth and do this every single day. You don't want to change your branding. You don't want to change your marketing all the time. So that's more of a generative AI component. Once you get to recurring tasks or actions, that's where the agentic piece comes in. And so the example that I used here is for rental analysis and marketing updates. So we all know every year, or even when you're onboarding new properties, there's going to be a lot of vacancies. There's going to be things that pop up. You're going to need to do rental analysis. You're going to need to update marketing content and descriptions or property details or whatever it may be. And there are tools out there that can do it, things like Rentometer and AirDNA and other ones, and just like scraping through Zillow can actually get you a lot of really good information, but you actually have to like manually go and do it. And so what I had to do last night for me is just look at one of my properties, and the prompt that I gave it was, I need help doing a rental analysis. So like log into my platform and search for all my vacant properties, and one by one do a market analysis and create the marketing description for the property. Once I confirm it's good to go back into the property within the property management system and update the unit with the content. So I had to go through, I gave it a property, um, came in with his market analysis and a recommendation. So the suggested rent came in at $16.95 a month, which is actually what I have this property rented at too, which was pretty cool. So it was spot on. And then it gave me this draft marketing description based on the property too. And I said, cool, I approve this. And then it went in and actually started creating that marketing description. So you can see it wants me to update the marketing description. So right now it was in Hotpads doing some research. Now it's logging into uh, Rent Ready, which is what I use as an example. It's going to the properties section saying view all properties. I need to find the actual property itself. I'll scroll through here a little bit. Now you can see it's actually changed the notes on the property. So it actually copy and pasted the rental description there. But it did realize that that wasn't actually the marketing content. So it went through a little further, and there we go. And now it's trying to actually post the rental unit online. But I did give it guidance to not actually make it live. So it's going through here and actually updating all the information about the property, the amenities. It's checking the rent price and updating things as it goes. And then at the end, it tells me it's done and it's ready to be posted. So this all took, it says 8 minutes, which is why I was kind of scrolling through it. But what's really cool about this is 8 minutes that you could be doing something else. Or if you have 30 different properties, you can be going in and just saying, hey, do it for my latest 30 properties, and then moving on and going about your day for everything else, and then just checking in with it to making sure it's being updated. So lots of cool things that you can do there. And just one example I wanted to share for how you can use it in your company. All right. So a couple Vendoroo uses. As I mentioned, we have been working at automating our onboarding process. For those of you that have gone through our onboarding with us, you may remember you met with Juan and Amara, and there were a couple different meetings about like what are your overall policies, who are your go-to vendors, and there was a decent amount of setup to set up the brain of your AI to make sure it worked as seamlessly as possible from the get-go and had all of your insights in there already. And so what we've been transitioning to do is do something very similar to what I just showed with the agentic AI going in and looking at like property vacancies. Is actually when you get onboarded, and we can do this for current clients now too if you're interested. So just reach out to your account manager if you want to take a look at this. But it can go in, look at all of your work orders within a previous period of time. We set it to go back depending upon how many work orders you have, a certain period of time, so it's not taking in like old data or old information. But what people may not realize is that how you interact with your tenants, your work orders, your vendors, and how you process work orders actually says a lot about how you operate your company. And so from those work orders and how they get completed and how the communication is tracked within your property management system, we can actually get a lot of really good insights into who your go-to vendors are, who what their priorities should be, what they're good at, what they're usually assigned to, like what types of amounts you are actually approving. So what your not to exceed amount is, what's owner responsibility, what's tenant responsibility. And so from that, we get all this great data on behalf of our clients that are onboarding. So now we don't have to do those intake calls and take an hour of your time to just get and talk through those policies. Now we come to you and say, hey, this is what we understand from your work orders and how you've operated, and now just confirm that these are right. And the agent actually will go in and put these into your AI's brain so that we can move forward. And it's a simple, basically checking the boxes meeting. And so we can talk about the fun things about, hey, like let's turn this on. Let's talk about like custom use cases. Let's see how it's interacting and walk through a work order so you can see how the AI is actually thinking and how your AI teammate is really helping you out as well. So that's a really cool thing that we're excited about from the onboarding perspective as well. But again, if you're a current client of ours that didn't get to go through this component, or you have questions about it, please feel free to reach out to the account management team as well. All right, and then another thing that I wanted to show is just like a way of just being more efficient with your time. So I see we have a lot of note takers in the call as well, which is great. People using note takers to keep us all honest, and they generally will. Those are more generative AI because at the end of it you get the summary. It sends a basic email to people with like action items and things like that. But it's more of a reminder. Hey, here's the information. And so what I've done with my team internally is how do we take that and take it to the next step where we're adding visibility, accountability, and efficiency across the board. And so, as an example, with what we have here is there's a call transcript. Calls transcript comes in and I have it being sent from one of our call recording platforms into my email. That is then being looked at one of my AI agents, and it then parses it out into this format, which then gets shared to the rest of my team, other leaders, or basically whoever needs to see it, and summarizes the call. So not everybody has to be on the call. Not everybody has to just look at whatever the call output is in one area. And then it's also in one place for everybody as well. So from here, we get a summary. We can say, how are things going with our clients? How are things going with this call? And then also what any action items are. And so the cool part about this is that I now have another agent that looks at these postings, and it actually will create action items within. I use Asana as like a project management, but if you use something like Lead Simple or like Go High Level, which I showed, or like Monday or like any other project management like platform, like you could, if you use tasks within Buildium, in theory, you could even have it create to-dos and tasks within Buildium, like for your internal team as well of these things. So then you're basically taking a conversation that somebody had, providing visibility to those that weren't there of, hey, this is the outcome, this is what needs to be done. But then you're also closing the loop and assigning it to somebody on the tail end that you can then track and hold yourself and the team accountable to, like, yes, we closed out this task, we closed out this item, without ever having to like do anything manually. And so wanted to just show some like little mini tips and tricks there. The cool piece about Agentic AI, and a tip that I got when I was starting with these early on, is never let your agent rest. Like, the agent is valuable when your agent is working on behalf of you, and you don't have to watch it. So similarly to Vendoroo, like the power of Vendoroo is that our goal is to get you to 90 to 95% of your work orders being fully automated by setting up your policies right, your maintenance notes right, your having your property set up right within your property management systems. And when all that is done correctly and is done with great detail, our AI can actually hit that like 90, 95% mark. And so you all and all of your teams can do what they do best, which is that human component, building relationships, following up where it needs to be, jumping in when it really is a challenging process or a challenging work order, but not having to worry about that other 90% of of things that historically would have been on your plate. So the power of this is that it really is unseen. Like all of these action items for me from call recordings are happening in the background while I'm jumping to the next call or like doing another task. And I just get to go in and say, hey, what do I actually have to do in this moment? And so that's our goal as well at Vendoroo is the only time that you get brought in is when your AI raises its hand and says, hey, this is either a policy you have in place where I need manager approval, which is you all. And once you give me that, I'll keep moving forward. Or if it's something new or different, or like say a tenant flags another issue that isn't related to a work order, but it's definitely worth a human touch. The AI can say, hey, like let's pause here, let's escalate this to our manager, figure out what to do next, and then move forward. So the goal is that it's really only bringing you in when you need to be brought in. That was my brief spiel. If you have a question, definitely feel free to jump into. Paul asked, will this recording be sent out? Yes. So we go through, just trim out the pauses and things like that, and all of these will be posted to our Vendoroo YouTube channel. Yes.
Tyler, I have a question for you. Last week, we had a couple of calls from tenants. One of them was water is coming up in my bathroom. It's just giving a gurgling sound. We thought first it's a roller rooter problem, so we sent the roller rooter guy to take care of it. And then they did something and they said that possibly the pipe is collapsed. So then we had to send some more expert, and we've been working on repairing that pipe for last couple of days. Before that, there was another call where somebody had ransacked in one of our empty houses, and we were reported by who? Actually, they put it on fire also. So, how would your system handle if you get a call like that?
So there's the AI first side, which is for everything that's non-emergencies. So right now, anything that comes in that doesn't meet our client's emergency criteria goes down one path. If it meets an emergency criteria, so something like fire, something like, hey, like none of the pipes are working in a house, like there's sewage backup, those go down a different path. And it is based on client by client what you determine as your emergency criteria. We do have a base amount, but there is customizations above that. So I'm just speaking generally here. But if it goes down that emergency path, if you subscribe to Vendoroo's emergency services, that alert goes straight to our team. We then basically pick up the phone and start dialing vendors, talk to the tenant, figure out what's going on, and move that forward at a very different pace. So emergencies come in and they're still human handled because there is that urgency side of things. And right now, like if a AI voice like reaches out, it's supposed to announce that it's AI, and vendors would say, hey, like what is this? Is this spam type of thing? So emergencies are still very much in the human side of things right now. And how I expect that to go is first, like as with any property management company, is let's get this downgraded first. Let's get a handle of what's going on. So with, for example, like with the fire, like the first thing that should happen is like, hey, call the fire department. Like make sure you're dialing 911 if there's a fire that you can't contain. We'll also like send somebody out if we can, like a vendor, or if the fire is already out, dispatching a vendor in that case to say, okay, what needs to be done as far as remediation? Is this a restoration company? Is it just simple paint? Do we need to replace appliances? So there's the first piece of that, which is, hey, like let's just get a hand on this and downgrade it. And the next piece is resolution. And so yeah, hopefully that answered it a little bit for things like, hey, something's flooding, a pipe's burst. If they go in and submit a work order, we'll actually try to get them to shut off the water first and downgrade it. And while that human is coming in to then raise like the alarm and actually step in.
Tyler, I'm not sure if it's related to this meeting or not, but I know we could train our AI agent. Is there any syllabus or training that we could work on it? Or you can show me how we could do that here?
Yeah, let me show you really quick. So there's two kind of sides of that. Um, the first is if you want something that's vendor coordination related. Vendor coordination related still needs to go through your account manager. We're working on the user interface to make it more streamlined and user friendly to use. So if you go to if you log into your vendor dashboard, when you log in, you'll see a maintenance book item right here. If you click on that, it'll bring up this view. On guidelines under maintenance workflow, this will be your customization area. So this piece can only be edited by your account managers right now. So if there is anything around how frequently we follow up with vendors, communication preferences with certain vendors, like when an escalation rule, like when a vendor doesn't respond, or like if a tenant says something specific, all of that after the triage is completed is customized here. And so if you're curious about that, just reach out to your account manager and they're happy to walk through your specific use case. That's what we're here for. But if you're curious about like a new policy or something, so if I go here, or you want it to troubleshoot a little differently, then that can be done through both the Chrome extension here or through the dashboard chat. These are the exact same, and you just go to train Resi root troubleshooting. And so when you click that, it'll enter kind of a training mode. You can also do this without entering it. You just say, I want to make a custom instruction for X, Y, and Z. But say we want to say, let's see, how do you troubleshoot garbage disposals?
How did you get here? Sorry about that. From chat?
Yeah, so the chat at the top, you should see a chat
Okay,
button,
gotcha.
and it comes to this window. Yeah. So this is how it will actually go through and troubleshoot garbage disposal. So based on like grinding noise, disposal not working, etc. And so if you said, kind of to Kalpana's point, like if you have a safety concern about them doing certain things, you can say for all garbage disposals, don't have the tenant due to safety concerns. So then you just type in what you want its custom instruction to be. And so now that will go into effect here. This is the sandbox one, so that's why this is popping up. But yeah, I've successfully updated resident behavior with this specific language, and so going forward, any net new work orders will now follow that policy. And then at any time, if you're curious about what my custom instructions are, my custom instructions. You just type in what are my custom instructions, and it'll tell you.
And if I want
Yeah.
to change it and I don't like it, I should type again and review it. Okay, got you. And is there any way if I can, I have some video on the YouTube, so can I include it here with the link?
Sorry, what was that?
I have some troubleshoot not email, sorry, video on the YouTube. Can I include the link here?
We don't have time for that right now, unfortunately. But if you want to reach out to your account manager, we can definitely walk through like specific training and changes with you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Keo had a question on, can we resync the vendor list and vendor notes? How do we proceed with that? Yes, we can do that. It is a little different flavor based on the property management system that you use. So definitely just reach out to your account manager and they can help with that as well. Lisa asked, emergencies will be handled by a human for all tiers. Tier 1, will the landlord be called? There's customizations that can be done within there. So if you do subscribe to our emergency services add-on, then yes, it's all human right now. If you don't subscribe to it, we can pass it off to your emergency process by giving the tenants either a phone number to call or an email address. Matt asked, can Vendoroo do accounting work of a property management company? So this is one thing that we have kind of drawn the line at. So even for our top tier, which is our command tier, where you get a human level concierge that can do a lot of things, that is still a boundary that we're not crossing currently, just because you get into different regulatory worlds with accounting and property management companies and audits and all sorts of things. And so we've maintained kind of being in the maintenance space so far, but that means we will go all the way up to including kind of that bill. So we'll collect the invoice and post it into your system. If you're on our top tier as well, there's other components that we can do to help facilitate that a little better, especially have markups and things like that. But yeah, creating the bill and actually sending it out or doing reconciliations or things along those lines are not currently within any of our product scopes. If you have any feedback on that, we're always looking to do better and improve our products. But billing and accounting is one thing that we have kind of kept separate currently. Carolyn just asked, can you give an example of a custom instructions where you tell it in a particular situation to not send a vendor to repair because you decided to replace an appliance? Yes, we actually have a couple of clients that either have the AI pause. So it says, hey, if anything comes in with an appliance, pause because it may be more cost effective to replace it rather than repair it. So it'll actually stop and like raise its hand, get an escalation, just say, hey, this is the issue that we're having. This is the quote, or do you even want us to send a vendor out there prior to and just replace it instead? So we actually have one client that says if there's ever a broken microwave, don't send out a vendor to repair it, just automatically replace it. And so that's a custom instruction that we do have that ties into that. Yeah, if you have a specific flavor as well, Caroline, happy to chat about it with your account manager. Can it troubleshoot whether pricing can be repaired? It can sometimes. It's like it should always walk through and say, hey, check the breaker, like what specific is wrong. It'll ask for the error codes. It can look up what that error code means and try to troubleshoot it with the tenant. It's not always clear just from a conversation with the tenant though, of like if it needs to be repaired or replaced. Like sometimes the tenant will just say, like, it's never worked, just replace it. And so we don't want to take that guidance either on that side. So yeah, there are nuances to it. And I would definitely encourage you, like, as you start seeing some work orders come through, or if you have specific examples of like situations where you would just rather repair it, work with your account manager to tailor it to that. Michael Sloan. Is it possible to classify handyman jobs based on the skill level required to complete the job? Yes, that is actually a really fun customization. So if I go to your go-to vendors list, so your go-to vendors are like, this is one thing that we grade maintenance books on internally. This is super important. And so say we had well, I'll just use a plumber here, for example, as an example. But say we have my management company listed as the handy person. So there's two ways to really accomplish that. One, you can keep them in the handy person piece and outline specifically what like types of work they can do. So skill level of like a handyman, like they can do like basic repairs of faucets, like leaky faucets, like running toilets, they can do fill valve replacements, but they don't do full toilet replacements. Like they're not good at that part. So like don't have them do that. If a work order came in that was classified as such and it said, hey, your toilet needs to be replaced, it wouldn't go to the handyman, but it would then go to a plumber. So you can flex it that way. Our base knowledge, we'll try to categorize it based on like handyman can do this in general versus like this has to be a specialized vendor. But the more details and the more notes that you put on your vendors here, and if they can do multiple categories, the better. And the AI can take that on your specific account and your specific work orders and take that into consideration as well. So like we do have clients that'll have somebody in the handy person, electrical, and in plumbing because they're like licensed as a general contractor and they can do everything. But there's like qualifications of, hey, if pipes need to be replaced or like we need to go into the walls, do not use this person. And so if there's the indication of like piping need to be replaced or it's a bigger issue, then it will go to the next vendor in line. Yes, Carolyn, that would be my recommendation. If they only do basic plumbing, is to add them to the handyman and then put those extra notes like what they're really good at. Likewise, if they are in your plumbing section, just put additional notes of like the things that they do not do. So they can be in both, but the better one would be to put it in the handy person. Can we avoid getting messages to tenants when a work order is on hold? Interesting question. I'd have to look into the specific case, Juliana, because sometimes it's like it's the concept of like what we mean by on hold. But yes, feel free to reach out to me, Juliana, since you're on my team. So happy to talk through that one. Hussein, we assign vendors based on property location? Absolutely. That's also a really good one. For those of you that have properties in like different metropolitan areas or vendors don't go to certain places, all you have to do is go to the vendor itself, uncheck this standard box, and then click on specify locations. And all the locations that show up are for you specifically, like your company specifically. And you can just check the ones that you want. You can also go into the top and just click certain cities and say select all cities in this area. And then once you hit save, it'll add them as properties to this person. And so when you look at your go-to vendor, now my management company has 5 properties assigned to it. And so this vendor will not be assigned to any other properties. Hossein, for tier 1, we still use the go-to vendors to provide insights into your into your triage and troubleshooting. So every single work order for every single, like regardless of tier you're on, will always get a triage. And in that triage is a vendor recommendation for everybody. And so if you are on tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, whatever it is, if you have the vendors in there, it will provide a recommendation to you. All right, looks like we got one more question. We'll take we'll like take an export of this chat too and follow up with people that we didn't get to. Ryan, yeah, so for HVACs, like when a tenant requests like emergency repair because the system isn't working, it does tell them it does ask like temperature outside, what temperature it is inside. We can tailor it to say if it's like in that case, like when it's partially working as well, our default is usually to say, hey, it's not emergency unless like it's truly, truly cold and they tell us. So if it's only warming to 70, that would be like it's still comfortable inside. So it may not go to that level. But if it then stops working completely and they tell us that, that will be a flag and then it can get elevated too. Or if you as a PM say, hey, like, no, we need to like elevate this because it's either an elderly tenant or whatever you want it to do, you can then reach out through the chat, either the submit an action request AI chat or adding your Vendoroo user in your property management system, and it will course correct too. All right. Well, I hope you all found this useful as well. We'll take a look at your questions. Usually takes us until like early next week to post this on YouTube and share it out with people as well. But super happy to have a lot of you join us as well. A lot of really good questions as well. And looking forward to having you next time.